Hello, and thank you for having me. Distinguished guests, officials, Minister Alvarado, Congresswoman Zolia, Cree Crawford, Dan O'Brien, my fellow speakers, and attendees, I'm happy to be with you here today, virtually, attending the Cannabis Science and Industry Congress. I'm Geoff Whaling. I was born in Canada. I now live just outside of Philadelphia. I have an experienced background in government, business, entrepreneurship, and philanthropic work. Currently, I am the co-founder and president of the Replant Hemp Advisors Group, which will launch next week, actually, a $500 million ESG fund to support the hemp industry globally. Previously, I served as the co-founder and president of a publicly traded company, Collective Growth Corporation, which combined on April the 5th of 2021 with Innoviz Technologies in a $1.4 billion transaction. Collective Growth Corporation raised $150 million before beginning public trading under the ticker symbol CGROW in April 2020. And prior to that, I was the co-founder and the president of the Canopy Growth Hemp Division, responsible for strategic advice, CBD, and hemp to the world's largest hemp and cannabis company. I led Canopy Growth's expansion into the hemp and CBD industry. I have worked an extensive network in the hemp industry. I've connected the dots to industry. I've worked with global governing bodies, and I am positioned to help, support, and maintain the global hemp supply chain. I continue ongoing dialogue with the White House and members of Congress to pass federal legislation and regulations to remove the barriers to the hemp industry and the challenges that we seek moving forward. We need to grow this industry and we need to reduce those barriers. I've had a seat at the table in the formation of the 2018 Farm Bill, which made hemp legal to grow across the United States. And then we've had to deal on a daily basis with the challenges that opportunity has provided. We are now working on the 2023 Farm Bill, and I'm working with Congress and the US Treasury on the establishment of a natural asset investment class while continuing to educate politicians and policymakers, regulators, and others addressing groups including USDA, state regulators, the World Trade Organization, World Health Organization, the EU, and the United Nations in order to grow a global industry. I too am the chairman of the National Hemp Association. The National Hemp Association is the industry's largest advocacy group based in Washington, D.C. We are considered the most trusted bipartisan voice on hemp. We represent all parts of the industry, not CBD, not fiber and grain, but all parts of the industry. We have advanced hemp around the globe, working with our colleagues from nations in order to help them gain from our experience. We have an understanding both of the regulatory and supply chain challenges, not only here in America, but around the world, and we're looking for ways that we can create a level playing field to build this industry. We are working to bring forward investments. Sometimes I have to do that myself. And we are looking towards bringing capital solutions by possibly creating some new investment classes. What is the state of the US industry? I think that is going to be a very good way for you to consider how you will be growing your industry now that legislation is in place. Let's look at where we are. Hemp was federally legalized in the United States in 2018 under the Farm Bill. However, it had previously been introduced under the 2014 Farm Bill, but that had no federal oversight. It permitted for states to adopt hemp as they saw fit under the definition of research, their own definition, and many states started to take on this crop as they saw it was a way to help farmers who were suffering in the dairy, tobacco, and other agricultural crises. Today, all 50 states in the United States and our territories have adopted legislation under either the 2014 or the 2018 Farm Bill. The 2018 Farm Bill allowed for USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, to adopt policies and rules under which hemp could be grown in this nation. They went through a first round of rules. They realized, because of the advocacy and work of not only ourselves, but the other hemp advocates in the United States, realized that they needed to reopen the discussion, and they welcomed to hear from the industry and adopted new rules that we now work under today. One of the biggest challenges for our industry is that this crop, if grown in a field, has the potential to grow 21 feet tall in 110 days. But there is no commercial scale harvesting equipment. There is no commercial scale decortication equipment that is specially built to tear that very tall and very strong crop apart. So most people in the United States look towards growing CBD in what I refer to as a horticultural crop. They grew it in small batches, small acreage in Christmas tree form, so that they could produce massive flowers and leaves that they could then extract the essential oils to create CBD. There was such a rapid growth in this opportunity that we now saw an overabundance of hemp licenses across the country. We had more than 1 million acres under permitting, and there were less than 200,000 acres of hemp for CBD purposes grown, which created a glut in the marketplace. As a result, we saw a 24% decrease in acreage under production in 2021. That's something for you all to consider as you are starting to grow your industry. The reality of the US hemp growing pains: the vast majority of hemp has been grown for cannabinoids or CBD. Since the passage of the 2018 Farm Bill, the market has become oversaturated and prices have plummeted. Farmers are no longer interested in considering to grow hemp, and the fiber and grain markets, which have a tremendous opportunity, are finding it difficult to develop because of this small growing pain that we've gone through. I'd like to point out to you that CBD or cannabinoid hemp represents only 2% of the potential of this crop. Please keep that in mind as you develop your programs. It will be important as you're looking towards developing bioplastic markets, construction markets, textile markets, that there is a huge opportunity, and cannabinoids, CBD, again, only represents 2% of the potential of this crop. So as we now work and the world is focused on sustainability and climate challenges, hemp is primed because of the immense contributions that it can bring to climate to become, here in America, America's next natural resource. And here's how we present this to our colleagues.
We stand at a crossroads. The demands of our modern world have taken a toll on the environment, pushing delicate ecologies to the brink of collapse and endangering the complex systems we've developed to meet our needs. Recent crises have starkly demonstrated how vulnerable these systems are. When the global supply chain is broken, consequences at home can be dramatic. What if there were a sustainable, domestically grown resource? One that could provide everything from food to medicine to industrial materials, auto parts, green concrete, bioplastics, paper, and more. There is. It's called hemp. Hemp won't get you high, but it looks a lot like its recreational relative. It was a staple crop in America for hundreds of years for ropes and sails, seed and oil, paper and textiles. In 1937, Popular Mechanics named hemp the first billion-dollar crop, referring to the plant as standard fiber of the world. In 1944, there were 1 million acres grown for the war effort throughout the heartland. But political pressure caused the crop to be prohibited, stopping sustainable progress cold and paving the way for a century of fossil fuels and rampant deforestation. But hemp prohibition is over. And now we know that so much more can be made from this plant. Auto parts without fiberglass, paper without deforestation, biodegradable plastics that won't choke our oceans, a building material lighter and stronger than concrete without dangerous chemicals, ideal nutrition, a world of possibilities in medical science. A thriving agro-industrial complex based on hemp is not a dream. Europe's regional model is now $1 billion industry and growing fast. The American consumer is ready for hemp, ready for products and practices that don't destroy our environment. With the passage of the 2018 U.S. Farm Bill, this sustainable natural resource is fully legal, and the time to grow is now. This is a promise that will let American farmers and manufacturers prosper from a versatile crop that once flourished in this very soil. A cash crop that can serve food, fiber, construction, energy, plastics, and cannabinoid markets. As industry leaders break ground in the U.S. on commercial-scale processing facilities, American hemp is poised to disrupt virtually every non-renewable industry. Hemp, America's next natural resource.
We work very closely with the White House, and in fact, the White House has asked the National Hemp Association to produce 2 reports in response to their interests in aligning this sustainable commodity crop with their policies. So we produced 2 reports, and they will be both available to you. One is hemp in the U.S. National Climate Action Plan. The White House had identified 12 policy areas that they were focusing on, and they wanted to know whether or not hemp might fit or meet one of those policy areas. We reviewed those policy areas, and we went back to them and said that we would need some time to respond to them. And they said, yes, we thought it would be difficult. And we said, no, the challenge is that we can address 8 of those 12 policy issues. The report that we submitted has now been distributed amongst the administration, and every one of the federal agencies within the administration, including USDA, Treasury, the Department of Energy, the Department of the Environment, have all received copies of this and have engaged with us as to how they will be able to support the industry and how the industry will be able to support them. The second report that we were asked in follow-up to this submission was our Building the Sustainable Hemp Industry in the United States. This was a quite extensive initiative that we undertook, and part of that was to develop an economic impact study to look at what the potential was for the industry over a 10-year period. We worked on the basis of, if we could get American farmers, 5% of them, to add hemp into their rotation, what would that mean over a 10-year period? And the results were surprising. We've presented 4 scenarios here, and they went from not only looking at that 10-year opportunity, but what would be the impact across the board. And if you can see these charts, you will see that from scenario 1, it is a $4.7 billion economic impact on 5.5 million acres of hemp, through to scenario 4, which is looking at maximizing that 5% rotation of hemp. And that would have a $30 to $33 billion annual economic impact and have a direct job quotient of 63,000 jobs, indirect about 175,000 jobs. And that does not take into account anything but the growing and the processing of hemp. You will see along the bottom of this slide that those are all of the opportunities. And so we see that hemp can be, in the United States, a multi-billion-dollar contributor to our annual economy. The other things that we've undertaken at the National Hemp Association, which will be things that you should be looking at as you move forward, is developing relationships, obviously, with your leadership and your administration, looking at how there could be funding or advance monies from the government to help build that infrastructure that is so vital to ensuring that we can build this industry, working with all your elected officials to look at all of the opportunities that hemp can provide, and then dealing with your own versions of the FDA or the DEA to make sure that the whole of government understands the goals of the leadership and of the administration in order to bring this agricultural commodity forward. The other things that you should start to think of now rather than in the future is how can you start to build an export market? The world is going to be looking for an incredible and inordinate amount of hemp fibers to be used in various forms. And looking today at the way that you can advance those exports is going to be to your benefit rather than looking at them 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line. Keep international marketplaces in the forefronts of your thoughts. The other thing that you will have to worry about is working with your own customs and border patrol to really educate them, as we've had to, on what hemp is and what it's not. I think working with your banking administration, working with local banks, so that they can get prepared for the onset of this growing industry is going to be really important towards your success. Here are our challenges in the United States. They may be the challenges that you have as well. The FDA, who has a legislative authority under the Farm Bill Act that approved hemp, was given complete control over anything that would be eaten or consumed by both humans and animals that would be consumed by humans authority. The FDA has not yet regulated on this because the challenge is that they have also approved a clinical trial for GW Pharmaceutical approving a drug called Epidiolex. And the problem with that is here in America, it now requires that the FDA looks at anything that is produced from hemp, even hemp seed and hemp grain, under the same lens as they would a drug. We are working on legislation to allow fiber and grain feed to be removed from that process, but right now it is one of our biggest challenges. This crop and commodity has been absent our landscape and most landscapes around the world for 85 years. The challenges that we have is that governments around the world have different research and standards that are required in order to bring a new product to the marketplace. We know that groups like the one that Cree has developed, Ionization Labs, has looked at the technologies that would be better and best in the marketplace and in field to test products. That's going to be really important to your regulations. And I think that all the way along the supply chain, advancing research for your own marketplace, as well as for export marketplace, is something that you need to advance now. And I think that Dan is one of the guys that you should be working with closely. Certainly including, as I've said earlier, a better understanding amongst whole of government as to the intentions of the legislation and what the elected officials really have meant by passing and introducing this legislation. So I think that having whole of governments conferences like the one that you're hosting now is going to be very important moving forward as you build this industry. Certainly, we at the National Hemp Association will continue to be available and offer advice when and if necessary. Where are we going? We continue to support the administration. This is a letter that we submitted and made public that went to Speaker Pelosi and to Senator Schumer in giving our support to legislation that they were moving forward that would help bring significant funds, almost $1 billion, to the hemp industry in America. We continue to tell the story about the jobs impact, the rural impact, the reoccurring annual impacts, and the CapEx impact that hemp can have on the economy here in the United States and around the world. In addition, as I spoke of earlier, we know that there is so much money that is available for investment, not only here, but around the globe. So we have undertaken trying to develop a new natural asset class, a NAC. And we're hopeful that we will be able to get leaders not only from Treasury here in the United States, the climate counselor to Secretary Janet Yellen, as well as Congress to adopt new legislation and regulations to allow for the creation of this natural asset class. Ironically, I happen to know that Costa Rica already supports such of a movement. And here's a quote from your Minister of the Environment, who believes that building a pilot project for establishing a natural asset company and class is going to deepen the economic analysis of giving nature its economic value, as well as to continue mobilizing financial flows to conservation. We believe that hemp will fit nicely into this as one of the most sustainable crops on the planet. And we see that this is one of the ways that we will be able to raise the millions, if not billions of dollars that it's going to take to bring this industry back to the landscape, not only in the United States, but around the globe. We also have worked and been a founding member of what is now the International Hemp Organization. Our federation and all of our rules were adopted last year. The office will set up in Brussels, and I'm happy to say that we now have 35 hemp organizations from around the world that will be joining us as we move forward in Brussels to get hemp not only recognized by the EU as it's recognized in Canada, the United States, and now in your nation, but with international organizations like the WTO and the WHO. We know that the global marketplace today is around $4.7 billion. We know that it's projected to climb to $14.6 billion by 2027. But if we are able to bring that capital that I spoke of earlier, we will see that it is going to really triple that amount to some $40 billion in the very short term. Here's something that you should think about. In order to reach the mandate of converting 50% of vehicles in the United States to become EV or electric vehicles, it is going to take an investment of some $400 billion a year in each of the next 20 years. Hemp will play a major role in helping the electric vehicle industry because hemp can replace fossil fuels, carbon fiber, plastics with a hemp bioplastic and a framework that will be stronger than steel. It will also make those vehicles lighter. And if you're not aware, nanosheet technology, graphene and graphite can also be produced from hemp. And that is the way that we will be able to replace what is about 300 pounds of an automobile's production today with this natural fiber and commodity. $400 billion a year in each of the next 20 years. And that is just for the American electric conversion to electric vehicles. Education is key to the work that we do at the National Hemp Association. You will see that we undertake workshops and speak at events across the country on cannabinoid extraction, business practices, best practices for planting, fiber and grain cultivation, and Hemp 101. All of this information would be available to you by visiting our website. Please feel free to take a scan of this or visit our website, which is the nationalhempassociation.org. And please remember, hemp can help. And I thank you for this opportunity to be with you today, and I wish you well for the rest of your conference.